I hope you've all drunk a lot already. Yes? All right, good. Because strangely enough, my talk here tonight is about pluralism and individualism, and I had no idea. I really am delighted to be part of this evening and part of this remarkable fundraising event that Dr. Foreman has put together. I hope it's the beginning of many. So, my first apartment when I moved to New York was on West End and 72nd, or as I preferred to think of it, 2 blocks west of Gray's Papaya. My office was about 4 blocks from Papaya Princess. My gym was around the corner from Papaya World. I had a very close friend who lived near Papaya King. Now, I had never spent a lot of time around papayas. And when I moved to New York, I didn't particularly expect that that would be happening, but suddenly papayas were everywhere I was. Now, I had a lot of questions about this. I mean, what was a tropical fruit doing in a temperate city? Why did all papaya stores sell hot dogs? I mean, were they health food stores or junk food stores? Why were they all decorated with those banners saying things like the magical papaya fruit and God's gift to mankind is the papaya? You know, these sort of fractured, half-poetic statements. Why did they all have mentions of royalty in their names? Now, I was new to New York. I didn't realize that part of the nature of New York is you simply accept things like high taxes and sidewalk bridges. I was still naive enough to think that you could get answers. So I started by going into papaya stores and talking to the counterman. Now, I should say I had no interest in consuming papayas. I actually think they taste like a memory of something that tasted good. But I was compelled to find out what this was all about. And I would ask the counterman, and I would get these very strange, kind of Zen-like answers, like, the relationship between man and the papaya is excellent. Or, God intended the papaya to be here in New York City. This wasn't very satisfying. I finally called a gentleman named Peter Poulos, who actually owned Papaya King, Papaya King. I get them mixed up. Papaya royalty of some kind. Papaya King, which it turns out was the original papaya store in New York. And he explained it to me. He said that his father had taken a trip to Miami and had tasted papaya and thought it was remarkable and saw this as a great business opportunity. There were no papaya stores in New York at the time, shockingly enough. And he decided he would open a papaya store. He happened to like hot dogs, so he thought he'd throw hot dogs on the menu. He kind of fancied himself a bit of a poet, so he would write these little poetic kind of tributes to papaya and hung them all around. And he named it Papaya King just because why not? It sounded sort of majestic. So all these other papaya stores were just copying the success of Papaya King. And they copied it down to the absolute letter with the poetry and those weird kind of things that come flat and then you open them up and they're all paper, they turn into a three-dimensional paper thing, and you hang them like a pineapple, and so they all look the same. And actually, part of the problem is that they were so similar that there was a certain issue here about trademark infringement. And as a matter of fact, right around that time, Papaya King had filed suit against Papaya Kingdom, charging trademark infringement and interference in trade and so forth. As a matter of fact, so the suit was filed in district court, and the judgment had just come down. The judge in the case, Peter Leisure, decided that this was in fact a trademark infringement. So Papaya Kingdom, when they got the ruling, decided to satisfy the judgment by taking a piece of masking tape and putting it over the K on their sign, so it said Papaya Ingdom, which they felt differentiated it sufficiently from Papaya King. Actually, then Papaya King sued again, and the judge said that unless this other business was satisfied in being known as Papaya Ingdom, it was in fact violating, again, trademark rules and copyright and so forth, and he fined them for attorney's costs and trademark infringement and basically threw the book at them. I found this case an absolutely stirring example of American justice, and I decided to go after the ruling had come out. I thought I'm just going to wander down to Papaya Ingdom and see if they maybe came up with another name and a new sign and how they were going to deal with this. But by the time I got there, they were gone and a pizzeria had opened in the same space. So at this point, I had been in New York for a while, and I began to understand that being here meant this kind of acceptance of certain things that you simply can't answer. And one of them was this great mystery of the popularity of papayas here in our great city. I'd actually even begun to drink a little papaya juice. At the time, there was a great special at Gray's Papaya. It was a small papaya juice and a hot dog for, I think it was $2.99. And so I ended up going down. They had great hot dogs. And it was just, to me, it was everything that was all about New York. It was this crazy, strange, incomprehensible mix. There was always a couple of homeless people in there and businessmen and working people who were in a big rush. I had really come to accept it as part of what it was like to live here in New York. And I'd come to understand a lot about the city. At that point, I knew uptown from downtown. I knew the east side from the west side. I finally understood that the guys in my parking garage were denting my car on purpose because I wasn't tipping them at Christmas. I was becoming a New Yorker, and I felt good about it. So one day, I wandered over to Gray's Papaya. I felt a little bad, by the way, that my local papaya store was not part of this royal house of Habsburg. It wasn't just Gray's Papaya. It's like, what's wrong with us? There's nothing royal about it, but it was my local place. So I wandered over, and there was another aspect of these stores that was always weird, which was they were always blasting country music on the PA system. So it was just, everything that made no sense together in one small place, which is kind of how I define New York. So I lined up in Gray's, ordered my small papaya and my hot dog. And one of the things about these papaya stores is very efficient. Everybody's in there, there's a big crowd, but nobody's talking. We're just getting our hit for the day. And there was a man next to me that I'd also gotten very used to seeing in New York. He was kind of wild-eyed. He looked a little like he woke up in the morning with a vision of the apocalypse. And he was sort of bedraggled. And I thought, that's New York. That's why I'm living here. It's diversity, baby. And we stood in line. I ordered my small papaya and my hot dog. He ordered what he was ordering. And then I walked to the end of the counter and got in line for the condiments. They have those big barrels with the pumps on the top. Ketchup, which nobody ever uses, and the mustard. So I stood there, waiting in line obediently to get to the mustard. The guy is sort of violating my personal space a little bit, but I was okay. And he leaned over to me, very close. He says, "It's gonna blow up." Now, I was a New Yorker at this point. I understood that was the kind of exchange you might have in the course of a regular day. And I just sort of nodded and turned away and thought, I just really want to get this mustard and get out of here. And, next person gets their mustard. I step down. The guy steps close to me, leans over again, in my zone of comfort, and says, "It's gonna blow up." I thought, it's just a moment, I'm gonna be out of here. Just keep it together. Finally, it was my turn. So I step over, put my hot dog, put down my papaya, put my hot dog down. The man leans over one more time and says very distinctly, "It's going to blow up." I took a deep breath, put my hot dog down, put my hand on the pump, pressed it. It blew up. Mustard exploded all over the store. There was mustard in my hair, all over the front of my shirt. There was a blast zone in my hot dog. There was a plug of mustard that had been clogging the pump that was now somewhere on my left cheek. I stood there just dripping. And the man said to me, "I told you it was going to blow up." I turned to him and sort of shrugged and said sheepishly, "I just moved here. Thank you. Good night."
Susan Orlean.